If you run a business, you will have questions from your customers and or clients. So this system here is going to show us how we can route those questions to the proper person so that they get answered quickly and efficiently, and you don't burn through a bunch of money and time trying to figure out what you should be saying back to that customer of yours. Okay. So this system here, I'm going to read the overview. It says this diagram is going to show us how the support ticket is automatically sent to the right person, tracked with deadlines, and escalated if needed so customers get fast help and nothing falls through the cracks as far as support goes. So how we're going to start this system off is the trigger point is when a new support ticket is created. Somebody reaches out, they have a question on a refund, they have a question on your product, they have a question on how the service works. They reach out with some type of question. The very next thing that you should consider is how we want to route this to the right person. And there's a lot of ways to do this. If you're a smaller business and you don't have something set up right now, if you're just basically taking emails from people and then you're just trying to answer emails and it doesn't matter who's answering them, the most efficient way that you could just get up and going, it's a really easy way to get this installed, is doing something called a round robin. Round robin, if you're not familiar, if you have 3 different reps, let's say if a question comes in, it goes to rep 1. The second question comes in, it goes to rep 2. The third question comes in, it goes to rep 3. And then it's going to repeat that over again. So the fourth question that comes in goes back to 1. Fifth question goes to number 2 again. And the sixth question goes to number 3. So it just cycles through evenly. This is a really easy way because there's not a lot of fighting that happens. There's not as many disputes anymore. If you've noticed, if you don't have this set up, if you're just giving these to people to try to solve them, you're going to start hearing kind of some whispers or complaints that people keep getting harder problems than the other people, or you always pick on them to solve a certain type of problem, whereas this system just evenly distributes the problems to everybody on the team. So it's a quick and easy way to get going. Where I would go from there if I was a larger business, I would try to do something a little bit different if I already had a round robin, because there's more efficient ways to solve the problem. So you could look at this by ticket type, you could look at account type, you could look at special requests, and you could look at territory. There's probably even more than that, but those are some other common ones that I see. These ones are broken up by more or less some type of category. And the reason you break it up by category, this allows your team to get better at solving the questions or concerns that people have. So an example, if we have rep 1 only solving billing problems, in a year from now, they're going to be way faster at solving billing problems than rep 2, because that's all they do. They only solve the billing problems. So it allows them to get through more tickets quicker. So you could build out a team that is just like, hey, you're getting assigned to the billing team. This is all you handle. It's just billing questions. Another one could be specifically like refunds. Another one specifically could be like product demos. And you get the idea. The longer they work on that problem, the faster and more efficient they'll become at solving that problem, allowing them to get back to the customer and solved quicker. And number 2, build more expertise in that area too of how it works. So ticket type could be a way to do that. Account type is similar, but it's more based on usually like company size or maybe industry that you work with. So if I look at my own business, we're a service business. We primarily work with tech companies, but here or there, we work with some other people that fall outside of that, financial services and whatnot. So in that situation, if somebody reaches out to my business and it's a tech related business, then I'm going to push it to rep 1. If it's a financial service type business, maybe I push it to rep 2. And if it's legal, maybe I reach out to rep number 3 to handle that problem. So you could do it by category again, but it's more based on what the business does. And that allows them, same idea. These are the types of problems that usually tech companies have versus legal companies versus financial companies. So that's another way to do it. Territory location, I'm going to come back to special request here. Territory location, same idea, but it's based on region. You see this a lot with leads. So more on the sales side of things. When somebody reaches out from like West Coast versus East Coast, you might want to consider this, I would say, more if you're global. If you're global, timelines obviously play a factor in who you're going to assign this to. You also want that for like things like culture and maybe different languages if you're doing that too. So territory location can also be very helpful. And you can always have subcategories underneath this, right? So you could also say, hey, this team handles all things in, let's just say, Europe. And then under the Europe team, we're also going to categorize this by ticket type too. But that will allow you to be able to tap into the right timelines, and you don't have all these like weird hours that maybe you're having to worry about. The last one is special request. This one is maybe the next step up from round robin or around that mark when you're a little bit smaller. If somebody has a special request to work with someone specific, or that person, knows this person as you guys have been growing and scaling, and they have a deep knowledge or a deep context on how that business works, this could be a situation there where they flag it and say, hey, typically we assign this out to sales rep one, but this is a really old account or a legacy account, or maybe a high ticket account that we want to give white glove service to. And they've requested specifically that this goes to rep number 2. So we're going to send it over there. So I would also factor in for things like that. Don't typically do that. And I would say as businesses get bigger, that's usually like a fallback. If they can't solve it, then okay, bring in somebody else. But in the beginning days, as you get going and customer service is kind of everything so that people don't churn, that's something to consider too. After we assign it to somebody, we're then going to want to notify that representative. So this is going to come in as a case inside of Salesforce. We're going to create a case for this. Basically, what you do in Salesforce is you'll have a little contact us on your website. So the most easy way to do it, essentially. You'll have a contact us on your site. They fill in the details that you want them to, name, email, what the problem is. And then that's automatically going to create a case inside of Salesforce for you. So after we assign it, we then want to notify that customer service rep. Hey, you just got this new case, and then maybe some bullet points on what those things are. You can do this via Slack, Teams, or Gmail. You could do all three. You could even just send a notification inside of Salesforce if you really wanted to. What I see most commonly is like email and or Slack. So maybe pairing either one of those up. Depends on where you guys communicate the most. But what I see is then you assign it to them and then you give them somewhat of a preview in this other channel. So it assigns it to them in Salesforce and they can always go find it in Salesforce. But then they also get an email or Slack message that would say, hey, Jordan, you were just assigned this case. Here's the link to that in Salesforce. Here's the subject of the case, which is usually what is this case about? And here's the company that's reaching out to you and the name of that person. So it gives them a preview before they even click into it to just remind them, hey, this is what you're about to step into. Also always good to kind of over communicate these so people can jump on them as soon as possible. So we're going to notify them. And then the next most important thing I would say from there is we want to stamp our SLA. SLA, if you're not familiar with that, that is just basically a timeline that we have of how fast we're committed as a business to solving this issue. A lot of times you'll see an SLA of 24 hours, meaning when a ticket comes in, we want to start working and give them a notification that we've started working that ticket within 24 hours. You might have it longer, you might have it a little bit shorter, but 24 hours is pretty typical. We want to stamp that so that we can escalate this if we need to. I didn't map this whole thing out. I would rather talk through this because this depends on where you're at again. If you're smaller, let's say around 3 million-ish, if you're at that phase, this may not be too big of a deal. It also probably depends on what kind of product or service you sell. I know for like my business, it's not really typical. Our account manager checks in once a week. We have these sync ups. So it's not typical for us to just get a random off question that comes in for like billing or something. So for us, it's not really pertinent for us to try to figure out like a whole escalation path at this point. We just don't get enough of that volume to spend time on it. But in the future, as we grow, this would be something that we would want to have. So it depends on what you maybe sell or what you do. So think through that first. But what I would do here, depending on the size of your business and what you do, is look at that SLA. So if we surpass 24 hours, what do you want to do from here? Do you want to make sure that we send a second notification to that same sales rep? Do we want to get a manager involved? Do we want to just reassign it? So take it from Jordan and then put it back through the reassignment rules and assign it to somebody else. This gets even more advanced, but the higher up you go, you're also going to want to start considering things like when these sales reps, I keep saying sales reps, I mean customer service reps. When these customer service reps start taking vacation, so PTO, you're also going to want to start thinking through who we're going to delegate these tickets to when they're not there, because that's going to happen, right? They're going to take a day off. So if they're working a ticket, how do we push that ticket to somebody else? Or if they are out of the office, how do we make sure that our routing rules up above don't send stuff to Jordan if he's out of the office? So you're going to want to start thinking through things like that as you get bigger. As you're smaller and you have less of these problems, it's not that big of a deal. But those escalation rules is where I would go next. So basically, how do we handle this so that we can continue to serve our customers and clients in a very quick way? When people take PTO, when they don't respond, when they're struggling maybe with the ticket, or when someone asks for a different rep, which sometimes happens, to be put on that case because they just are frustrated with the rep they're working with. That's what I would think through next for your escalation rules. Okay, cool. So if this seems interesting to you, you don't have this set up, you don't want to do this yourself, or you're unsure how to do it yourself in Salesforce, I did leave a link in the description below. You can click on that link. We'll see if we're a good fit for you guys first. So if our business works well with your business, and if we do, we'd love to come in and help you set this up. We'll talk through it specifically, what you guys do, and then build this out specifically for your business. It's not going to be an exact replica of this. This is just more of a framework to give you an idea. We'll actually tailor it to do exactly what you want to do. So if you feel like you need help with that, like I said, click the link below, and we'll look forward to speaking with you guys soon. Thanks.